Hey YouTube, Hysilens is finally here, and that means DOT is back on the menu alongside her trusty personal assistant, Kafka. My name is Xlice, and in this video, we'll be going over everything you need to know about Hysilens and showcasing her power at E0. This is going to be done on the CE server, and of course, that means that things are subject to change for full release, so keep that in mind. Let's start off with a full guide on how Hysilens works. So, physical and nihility, Hysilens is our freshest installment of DOT characters and does so without breaking a sweat. Her kit consists of a golden trio of utility for DOT, applying them, detonating them, and branding enemies with a debuff so they take more damage. Overall, her design weirdly reminds me of Trivi's. They both have ultimates that deploy zones and debuff, they both have a 3-turn lasting skill, and their talent adds a lot of extra damage in a specific way. For Hysilens, she's a great balance between actually applying lots of damage over time, debuffing enemies so they take more damage from all sources, and dealing solid detonation damage herself, and has the flexibility of being SP positive or negative. Because her DOT can be applied by all allies, she doesn't need to do the job specifically herself, and instead can sit pretty while the enemies bleed to death. Now let's break down exactly what she does. First, things you'll notice when you enter combat. Tooltip has a fishy icon and 3 dots. These indicate how long her zone is lasting, with 3 dots being 3 turns, and it's the same zone that her ultimate provides. This free zone you get at the beginning is created by her A2 trace. While the zone is active, all enemies have minus 15% attack, minus 25% defense at max level, and take extra physical DOT damage from Hysilens whenever they take normal DOT damage. So basically, when enemies take DOT naturally on their turn, or when your allies proc instant DOT on them, in both of these situations, Hysilens' zone will add extra physical DOT. Now, when any time she or an ally attacks, you'll notice that they get inflicted with an extra DOT. This is her talent in action, and it will add 1 DOT from wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock whenever any enemy receives an attack from any ally. Any DOT applied this way will deal at max 25% of Hysilens' attack per instance of DOT, which includes bleed, even though this scales off of max HP. AoE moves will apply 1 DOT to all enemies effective, so the DOT ramps up quite quickly. When it's her turn, you'll usually start off with a skill usage to get a 20% vulnerability percent debuff on all enemies that last for 3 turns. This of course also applies her own talent, so it'll add 1 DOT to each enemy hit. If you've already used her skill, you have the flexibility of using either her basic or her skill again. This is team dependent. Some cases will allow Hysilens to spam skill more often, some want her to basic more for SP generation. Whichever one you use will inflict DOT with her talent, so don't worry about that. Once she has 110 energy, she can use her ultimate. This summons a big whale that deals massive detonation damage and also creates the same zone at the start of battle for 3 turns. Her detonation damage is detailed in the A4 trace, and it's our strongest instant DOT multiplier at 150% final damage. This is 30% more than Kafka's ultimate, which is 120%, so if you can, you should aim to use her ultimate last after all DOTs that you want to apply have been applied. Now, the zone left behind deals 80% of Hysilens' attack as physical DOT whenever they normally take DOT damage, up to 8 stacks in 1 proc. This includes explosions that your allies apply, so whenever Kafka uses her talent, skill, or ultimate, if this zone is active, it'll add up to 8 additional stacks of 80% damage or 640% total attack multiplier. This ultimate zone is a major reason why Kafka is such a necessary teammate, because not only is she responsible for most of your team's instant DOT procs, but she also contributes at least 1 source of DOT to the 8 needed for full damage. Overall, that's the gameplay loop of her kit. Put her field up, debuff enemies every 3 turns, apply a bunch of DOT, and then explode it with her whale. Now, before battle begins, her technique is a passive ability that summons a cute water bubble that basically hypnotizes enemies, making them unable to attack and drawn to the bubble. You can enter battle with anyone else on the team, and doing so while the debuff is still active adds 2 DOT effects to all enemies of the same type that her talent provides. For her extra trace nodes, A2 is the zone at the beginning of battle, A4 is the ulti detonation, and A6 provides an extra 15% damage bonus per 10% EHR above 60%. She can receive up to 90% damage bonus at 120% EHR. And then finally, her extra stat nodes provide 14 speed, 18% attack, and 10% EHR. Perfect for a nihility build scaling. Overall, her kit is on the kinder side of understanding and doesn't have a boatload of text to explain. DOT will come from her talent, debuff comes from her skill, and big damage comes from her ultimate. She can be SP positive if you limit your skill usage, or SP negative if you want to spam ulti more, pretty flexible. Personally, I very much enjoy this addition to our DOT lineup, and Kafka is going to have a big fun time with this beautiful sea lady. For trace priority, her important scalings remain as mentioned in the early access review. Number 1 priority is her ulti with the def reduction and DOT. Number 2 priority is tied between her skill and talent, with skill providing vulnerability % scaling and talent providing raw DOT scaling. If you're a fan of DOT, just make sure to level all 3 of these. She's technically considered the hyper carry of DOT. Alright, so now let's talk about her Eidolons and if there's anything crazy going on in the first 2. E1. When Hysilens is on the team, all DOT receives a 1.16 final damage multiplier, and Hysilens' own talent is upgraded to applying 2 instead of 1 DOT on enemy targets. It sounds as strong as it seems. Doubling the DOT application from her talent essentially means her talent gets fully applied to all enemies within just 2 attacks instead of 4. And then, because Wind Shear has an additional cap of 5 total stacks, this Eidolon allows max stack Wind Shear to be applied on all enemies fairly consistently. With the final damage multiplier, this one feels very, very good to have. E2. This applies her damage bonus A6 trace to all allies. This one is only calculated off of Hysilens' EHR, so with her normal build and E2, everyone on the team gets an extra 90% damage bonus for free without changing their relic setups. Very strong for triple DOT setups. E3 and E5 are standard trace levels. E4 adds 20% res pen to her ultimate zone, which basically means you add Tribby's skill to Hysilens' ultimate. This suspiciously makes Hysilens have the reversed effect of Tribby's kit. In Tribby's skill, you get res pen, and her ultimate provides vulnerability %. For Hysilens, her skill provides the vulnerability %, and now with E4, her ultimate will provide res pen. E6. So this is talking about those 8 extra physical DOT ticks from her zone. Originally, it's 80% each on 8 extra ticks, which is 640% total multiplier. At E6, the multiplier increases to 100% each, and there are 12 extra ticks for a total of 1,200%. So this basically doubles her ultimate's zone damage, which is active on every instant DOT proc from herself, Kafka, or enemies taking their turn. Very big booms. Overall, Hysilens' E1 is very, very strong and good vertical investment for DOT enjoyers. E2 and E4 are both extra damage sources, which are nice to have, and of course, E6 is just massive explosions everywhere. Now let's get into her light cones. So we're mainly focused on EHR, attack, and speed if possible, with EHR being a pretty important stat to have because it reduces the stress on relic substats. Her signature is a juicy mixture of everything that DOT would need. You get raw EHR, you get DOT vulnerability %, and you get team-wide speed. This LC has really solid value since it's primarily a team buffing light cone. Having at least one of these on your DOT teams will provide everyone with its benefits, making it a really strong choice to invest in. Alternative light cones that provide similar value are as follows. Black Swan's signature. This one's more about personal damage. Provides raw EHR, stacking attack %, and stacking defense ignore. Primarily used on Black Swan, but can also be used on Hysilens. If you have both Black Swan and Hysilens, you can also try swapping light cones and have Hysilens use Black Swans to increase Hysilens' personal damage. Jiao Qiu's signature, also a solid choice, granting raw EHR and vulnerability % similar to her skill. With a 60% base chance, the amount of EHR needed to guarantee this hits is 167%, 47% higher than her 120% threshold, so keep this in mind if you're building around it. Generally, I would not recommend hard forcing higher EHR if it compromises your build. Then we have Eyes of Prey S5. This is our standard stat stick 4-star light cone with EHR and DOT increase. Good stuff. Those 4 light cones are the ones that provide EHR stat while also having additional bonuses. Now we have the final 2. Kafka's signature and Good Night Sleep Well are also light cones that are usable, but generally more difficult to build around since they have no EHR. I would personally stick to the EHR light cones to make build investment easier. On to Relics. 4-piece Prisoner is going to be the best in slot choice, and there really isn't an alternative that's worth considering. Prioritize this with any pieces that get the build going. For planners, we have a bit more leeway depending on your investment. 2-piece Revelry is best in slot, entirely catered around DOT, grants 36% total stat. 2-piece Glamoth is very, very similar, granting 30% total stat, a 6% loss from Revelry. We also have 2-piece Pan Cosmic, which is a conditional stat stick only used if you need it to hit your EHR needs. Graduate from this eventually if you gain a stronger light cone. Grants 35% stat if you need the 10% EHR. And then finally, 2-piece Space Stealing Station is our final choice with just less raw stat than all others, providing 24%. For main stats, Hysilens probably has the most flexible lineup considering all conditional scenarios. Body, we can go EHR or attack. Boots, we go attack or speed, or we go attack over damage, and rope, we have attack or ERR. For the body piece, only important thing is to hit 120% EHR. If you can do that with attack body, then all yours. For boots, attack is preferred due to her speed being naturally very high. With signature line cone, 150 is the bare minimum to reach 160 in battle. With substats, this should be doable, but build accordingly to your relic quality. Generally, I prefer attack even with lower speed substats since most of her DOT is applied through allies. For the orb, since Hysilens applies all 4 sources of DOT, she's dealing damage from all 4 types: wind, fire, lightning, and physical. Attack is preferred to boost them all. Fizz orb is going to be second best, boosting her bleed damage, which is the vast majority of her DOT damage. For the rope, attack is always a good way to go. You'll never go wrong there. My personal preference is ERR after testing her a bunch, but it really depends on how much you value maybe 1 or 2 extra ultimates. Stick to what feels comfortable. She can never have too much attack, but ERR can sometimes change the fight. Team comps. So, with Hysilens, the only absolutely necessary unit to have with her is Kafka. If you don't have Kafka, I really would not recommend pulling for Hysilens because it's a poor use of resources and her performance is very lackluster. She kinda needs Kafka to be the true goddess of DOT because she's the applier and Kafka's the exploder. Now, we have 2 other slots to fill in. Most common with a sustain and a flex. Black Swan will be the strongest flex slot to fill, enabling triple DOT, more depth reduction, and vulnerability percent. The strongest F2P choice will very likely be Ruan Mei, providing damage percent, res pen, and positive SP generation. Other alternatives include Robin. She's an action advancer, she's a damage percent and attack buffer, but a little bit SP hungry. We have Tribby, who is SP positive, double aura buffer, but generally is pretty slow and will be relying on ultimates and her passive talent procs. We have Cypher, SP positive, controlled true damage nuker, greatly assisting potential single target problems DOT would have. Naturally built 200 plus speed also means Kafka's not left alone being super ultra fast, and Cypher is guaranteed to be there to use up her talent follow-ups. Silverwolf, okay, but the death shred is very common in this team with 4-piece prisoner and Hysilens ult, so overcapping might be a problem. Generally, play with caution. Jiao Qiu, he's also okay, but with just vulnerability percent and his DOT being fairly mediocre, I'd only use him if he's Eidolon vertically invested. Now for sustains. Huohuo is going to be our highest value sustainer with both energy funnel and attack buffs. She's got the rare utility to improve the entire team's rotation speed. Gallagher will likely be the most common 4-star used, and holding a quid pro quo also provides a slight but valuable energy refund to random allies. Middle ground sustains that have high attack count that utilize Hysilens talents to apply more DOT. We have Aventurine and we have Hyacinth. Aventurine's own attacks plus follow-up attacks plus ultimate all contribute to raw attack count for Hysilens talent. Hyacinth's own attacks plus little Ika's attacks contribute as well, and her sustain potential is the highest among these choices. Both of these options are less uniquely valuable for the team, but can still be beneficial for their sustain power plus high attack count to apply DOT. So, the most common premium team will look like follows: Hysilens and Kafka with Black Swan or Flex plus Huohuo. F2P will look like Hysilens plus Kafka plus Ruan Mei and Gallagher, and then a generic team template will look like Hysilens plus Kafka plus Flex and Sustain. Alright, last but not least, is she recommended to pull? If you like DOT, pull for her. That's basically all I got for you. Oh, and grab a Kafka if you don't have her as well. Your Hysilens will come home screaming and crying if she doesn't see her bestie there. Alright, that's going to summarize it for Hysilens guide. If you guys want to see full showcases with nuanced commentary, I'll have a link to my E0 showcase. Otherwise, I'll have some extra B-roll to wrap things up. Like the video if it helped you out, and subscribe for more of these easy on the stomach guides and showcases, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.